Hi guys, it's me Ty here, and today I'm going to talk about should you buy or rent a boom truck, a telehandler, or a JLG personnel lift with a man basket on it. And this has just been a thing I've thought about a lot over the years, and I've actually rented at least one of these machines before in my life, so I have some experience, and I have friends that own all the other ones as well. And Um, okay, so first of all, I'll talk about my experience of renting and how expensive that it really was, and how you might want to think about hiring a contractor rather than renting. Okay, so for me, hanging over my house, I had a big tree that had died, and I left it for many years. My neighbors told me, they're like, "Man, you should cut it down. It could really wreck your house and all that." And eventually, it um, I did start to feel uncomfortable with it enough that I went ahead and I talked to one of the arborists in our area, and he has a 60-foot boom truck and a 75-foot boom truck. And then he's also got um, a thing that he tows behind it, like a little trailer or whatever, and it grinds up the branches and everything and shoots them into the back of his truck. So I had him come over and give me an estimate. And this big tree in the back of my yard, I'm guessing it was probably 50 feet. It was like a big, giant elm tree. And he told me $1,800 to cut that down. And then also there was a smaller tree, probably only like 8 inches in diameter, and it just went straight up, no branches really. And normally I would have just cut something like that down, but there was power lines going in every direction, and he quoted me at $300 for that one. Well, knowing me, I don't like to pay anybody to do anything that I can do myself. So I decided that I was going to go to one of the local rental places, and I was going to rent a personnel lift. And anybody that knows me, I'm afraid of heights, but when I'm going to be saving money, I'll push all that aside. So I went to the local rental company, and they had a nice JLG personnel lift, and that thing, it was I think it was a diesel powered one actually, and that one, it had the man basket, and I'd say that man basket was super wide. You could fit 4 men in there, so plenty of room for my chainsaw, another guy in there, whatever. But my cousin, he hurt his leg, so he couldn't go up in it with me. So I went there, and they told me $600 to rent it for the day, and that machine weighed in at 16,000 pounds with a full tank of fuel in it. And um, so I went ahead and I picked it up in the morning. The power line guy had to disconnect the power lines, and then I also had to return it. Not that night, but the next morning or whatever. So I was in a mad rush. That $600 half the time is on the road. So I went to go pick it up, and I brought it home, and I was in such a rush that I was only able to cut a few branches with it actually. So I was out of that $600, and then I ended up having to, and that was a 36 footer, you guys, is what that one was. And the dealership told me if I wanted to buy one like that, I'd probably be looking at like $42,000 for that machine. That was probably around 7 years ago or so. So I didn't get much done. So then I ended up having to hire the local arborist with his 75-foot boom truck to come cut down those two trees for me anyway. So I really got screwed on that one. So um, in a situation like that, I really suggest you guys hire uh, a contractor unless it's something that a machine that you can actually get like super cheap or whatever. So with that, one of my buddies, he has a bunch of telehandlers, and he said 42-foot telehandlers are the most common. And to buy a used one at an online auction, you are gonna pay probably that 22,000 to 32,000, 34,000, and those, they can lift a lot. He said they lift um, 8,000 pounds. And then you can also put a man basket. You can buy a man basket probably for around $600. I don't know, maybe 2,000, and just put it on the forks. But the problem with the telehandler is you have to have a second person, somebody that's going to lift you up there, and then you can work. And then maybe you could throw out a rope ladder from the man basket, and then you and your buddy can climb up and down from that. Well, if it was just you, you could do that. And rope ladders are expensive because I price those out to you guys. Um, so um, that's how that was. And then one of my buddies at work, he's like me. He doesn't like to spend a lot of money. And over his trailer house, he had a whole bunch of big trees. And these are the big cottonwood ones. And those big cottonwoods, I'm sure those are probably around $3,000 to have an arborist cut those down just because of the liability with those. So he was searching for years for a bucket truck, and I was too, for helping him. And what he ended up doing was he found a 1997 GMC Top Kick truck with a diesel engine in it. So that would be like your little single axle propane trucks or an old like 1980s grain truck. But like I said, this is 1997. But he said that diesel engine had a lot of blow by. That engine was really tired. And then at an online auction, he found a 60-foot boom truck bed for $2,500. And above the 60-foot bucket is a 5-foot long pole with a hook on it, so you could lift whatever up there when you're and I guess you won't necessarily have to be in the bucket truck because any of these machines usually they always have controls on the ground, so in case you ever get stuck up there, that somebody can rescue you and just bring you down. um so uh so yeah, he put that together for $7,000 is what he had into it, plus I guess whatever parts, bolts or whatever to bolt that bed onto there. And maybe if he had to do any little things to get the PTO pump to hook onto the back of the transmission or whatever. And actually, some of our coworkers, they actually borrowed it. Um, they bought a windmill off of an old farmstead, and I'm guessing a windmill is probably like 36 foot boom lift. So I would say a windmill is at least 36 feet tall. And one of them went up there in the bucket, and they don't weigh very much. They're pretty much just tin is all that a windmill is. Um, so they went up there and they hooked that 5 foot hook onto there or whatever, and they were able to just slowly lower it down with the boom truck. So that's what they did. And then also my grandparents, back when I was like 8 years old, they hired um, uh, some painters. It was two brothers and um, and their son or whatever. He's probably like 14 or whatever, to over the summer to paint their barns or whatever. And these are really big barns. And all I remember is when I was I wasn't there at the time, but my grandma, she said that one of the painters, that he fell out of that bucket truck, and thank God he had a harness on. And of course, his brother would have just used the hand controls to lower him in the bucket down to the ground safely. So, and any of you guys that have been around bucket trucks, only you can fit in there, but you really don't have any room. Like, there's no room for your chainsaw even really in there. And then I think that the back half of the bucket, a lot of them don't even have a door on them, I don't think. And the buckets, they're not solid. They're actually just on a hinge, and they just free like this. So they're actually really scary, you guys. The bucket trucks are. And I think they had like an old like late 1960s international single axle grain truck, like a gas one or whatever, and that's what theirs was. And a lot of them I used to see were like early 1970s F600 grain trucks that they would have the 60-foot bucket truck bed on it. So let's see here. Um, Okay, so my buddy with the telehandlers, he said a 40-foot telehandler, uh, they lift 8,000 pounds. So like I said, they lift a lot, and the price of like an online auction you're gonna pay for a used one is gonna be probably that 22,000 to 32,000 used. And then one of my other buddies here, he actually bought a brand new 36-foot JL his isn't a JLG. I think it's like a Genie. It's a blue one. 36-foot towable boom lift. And this one here, it can hold two people in it. But him and me, we went to go repair my grandparents' Quonset, and we couldn't get all the way atop. Like 36 feet, once you extend it out over a Quonset, it really isn't that much. But like both of us are pretty thin guys, and I couldn't even really go down on the floor of the basket there to pick up all of our screws and our impact drivers and drills, to screw all this tin back on this Quonset. And we both had our harnesses on and everything. And he paid $28,000 for that brand new, and it's electric. It's got a bunch of big batteries in it, and it would have been, I think, $2,000 more to have it where it's got this. It does have a single tire in the front, but to have it like hydraulic or electric motorized or whatever, so it can actually move itself around in your yard. And he regretted that, so then he bought the kit afterwards, and he had a nightmare of hooking it up. So technically, that machine, after you add on the wheel, is $30,000. Um, and then as for those JLG personnel lifts with the man basket on them, most of them have bigger baskets than my buddies. Like I said, his could barely fit the two of us guys in there. But most of the ones that the one like the 36 footer that I rented that was actually self-propelled, that one you could have fit easily 4 men inside of that one. So you got tons of room for a rope ladder and your chainsaws and drills and all that. So um let's see. But ultimately from all my research here, you guys, the best of the three to buy would definitely be the JLG personnel basket lift. But just for rescuing people and everything, and it can lift, but it is also the most expensive for your money. But I kind of usually am the type of person where if something doesn't meet all your needs, you're better off just saving up your money a little bit longer until you can get the best machine that will do all the different jobs that you need it to do. Um, but the bucket truck is your cheapest bang for the buck when looking for height. Like I said, if you can pick up a 60-foot bucket truck, that is a lot of darn height for uh whatever $7,000 like my buddy paid. And then I was just watching a YouTube video here, and a guy he got one heck of a deal because most your best deals are going to be on your online auction sites, but you always have to pay that 10% buyer's fee. And also, they lie so much in those things. So, my buddy always told me pay scrap iron price. And it's amazing how cheap you can get stuff on there, but do not overpay for anything because one of my friends, they bought I don't remember if it was a payloader or a JLG or well, a telehandler, and they paid like $30,000. And this was like years and years ago. And the truck driver delivered it, and it turned out that the engine was bad. Like, obviously, the engine must have started, but the engine was shot on it. So, and the auction company said, "Oh yeah, it runs and drives, and the engine's good." And really, it wasn't. So, I am terrified of buying stuff on auction. But like I said, my buddy, he's had good luck. But like I said, he pays scrap iron price for stuff. So, um, but yeah, this guy here, he bought a 80-foot JLG personnel boom lift. Um, and he paid $8,000 for it. He said it weighs in at 30,000 pounds. And let's see what else about it. Yeah, that's all I can think about is right now. It weighs, yeah, it's 30,000 pounds. So it's a lot of weight. Oh, and then the controls were working intermittently from the basket, but the ones on the ground, like if your mom was down there, they all work perfectly. Um, Okay, and then also, um, there you can get a better deal than what I paid for that to rent that 36-foot self-propelled man basket for a day. I paid 600, but at your local Home Depot, I just looked at their prices, and you can rent a 50-foot JLG personnel boom lift. It's the towable one, so it's not self-propelled or anything. And uh, your local Home Depot charges $500 for the day and $1,500 for the week. But like I said, you can't get all your work done in a day. You would almost have to rent it for the entire week or whatever, just because it takes so long to go pick it up and then so long to return it. It has to be back within 24 hours. So, um, yeah, that's about all I can think about it. So, if you're gonna have a construction company, though, honestly, I think that you should have something like this rather than having to call your local fire department or whatever. If you have a worker or yourself gets trapped up in a bad area like that, or I guess a lot of the other contractors in town, if you have one, at least if yours breaks down or whatever, that you could call them to come rescue you. or and then on the other hand, they can call you to come rescue them. So um, that's the way that is there. But honestly, I think if I owned like a construction company of my own, I'm just an employee, you know. But I would probably definitely search around and just if the deal ever arose that a 60-foot boom truck did become available for like $7,000, I think that's pretty darn cheap to have insurance, you know, just sitting in your shed, stored inside, that if there was an emergency that you could dig that machine out to rescue one of your workers. Because it's not necessarily that you always have to lift something up like um, if at least you can put a worker up in a high area or whatever, and once he's up there, he can tie off his lanyard and be working up on a platform in a tree, whatever, and then he can just lower a rope down, and you can he tie all the tools on it, and he can pull his bucket or bucket and tools and all that stuff, and then after that, you can go send that bucket truck back up there to go help him or whatever. And just nice for painting and just trimming the little tree branches around your stuff there. Um, and like across from my house, the city hired that guy with that 75-foot bucket truck there, and it was big cottonwood trees, so they were probably $3,000 a piece to cut down. And I always wondered like how would he cut those down? And like he didn't have that big of a chainsaw. It was like only a little 14 or 16-inch chainsaw that he was using. And the thing about the bucket trucks compared to like um, a lot of the other stuff like telehandlers and all that is the bucket trucks have like two different knuckles on them. You know, you can go up and down this way or whatever. You can get into the tightest, weirdest spots with a bucket truck with all those knuckles on it. But I have seen like the 36-foot bucket trucks that don't have outriggers, just the ones that are mounted on a pickup. And those guys start extending it off the side and just about tips that aren't pickup over. But most of the ones you're going to run into, I would think that they would have outriggers, or else you could just weld some on the side and throw a bolt in them and raise the shafts up manually if you wanted to for doing that. And like I said, in our area, the most common of um, the contractors with JLG personnel bucket boom lifts or whatever uh, with a basket on it. Those are 60 foot. Like I said, I don't see the 80 footers very often. And my brother at work, they were doing like some fall protection stuff. And at his job, he actually got to try out 120-foot personnel boom lift, and him and one of his coworkers went all the way to the top. And the salesman or whatever that or the guy that was doing the training for them, he's like, "Man, you guys got some nerves to go and max that thing out, put it straight up on end like that." So, um, yeah, and then one of my buddies, actually his dad and his uncle, they actually do have a couple of each of them has um I think theirs are like the 60 or 80-foot uh JLG personnel lifts. And they're so lazy, like when they go up on their grain bins, rather than go up climb up the ladder, they just raise themselves up that with that personnel lift with the basket on it. So that's what they do. And who knows, maybe in the future I might end up getting one of those JLG personnel lifts um, if I could get it cheap enough. The only problem is when they go for that cheap, usually they have a lot of electrical issues where it could leave you stranded up there. And then um, you never know. I mean, so when your neighbors could pass away and or whatever, and they decide not to really have an auction or whatever, and they could end up selling a 60-foot boom truck from the 1970s for super cheap too. So. If you guys like this content, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll just keep kicking out these money saving videos so you guys can have a better life. All right, take care.